All right, so call me a troublemaker, but I'm only trying my best to suggest things that can improve my Knicks. I don't really care about any other team but the Knicks. So, trying to make suggestions that will improve our team. Realistic suggestions that could be done and that would benefit whatever teams we're dealing with as well as us. So one of the things I like to do is I like to look for opportunities in other teams' problems. Okay, so I mentioned Golden State because remember I mentioned that they're going to be paying $100 million in debt service for their stadium they just built, $50 million in luxury tax, $50 million to Oakland, almost $150 million in salaries. Okay, and they're going to have reduced revenue. Now the thing about Golden State is that they're a championship team. Okay, so all other things being equal, they have options because they are a championship team. They still have their core group. But there's another team that's in a very similar financial predicament than the Golden State Warriors. And they are not a championship team. And so I have to play the role of vulture and look and see where we can exploit their problem. That team is the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cleveland Cavaliers would have had actually $27 million of cap space, but they have a problem. One problem is they're already repeater tax eligible for the luxury tax. Problem number one. Problem number two is Andre Drummond has a player option. This is not a team option for $28.7 million. And you know very well, if it was you, unless you're LeBron James and you can go get 40 million, which Andre Drummond is not, you're going to exercise that option and get the bag. You're going to take that money. So they have no cap space. And so, and this is the thing, Tristan Thompson just came to the end of his last contract at 18.5. Now I looked at the news, the Cleveland basketball news. I looked in their area newspapers and their area news and team news and such. And Tristan Thompson wants to finish his career in Cleveland, and the Cavaliers have indicated to his agent that they want him back. Okay. Now, of course, he just got paid $18.5 million. He's 29 years old, so he is technically in his prime. But he's been basically serviceable for, his whole career. He's been 9 years in Cleveland, and he wants to retire a Cleveland Cavalier. That's his choice. That's what he wants to do. But he's been serviceable. And the reason he got the bag in the first place is because he was included in a team that had LeBron James and Kyrie Irving on it that was making a championship run. He was never worth $18.5 million, although he was their overall number one pick in 2011, sorry. So he's been serviceable. Last year he averaged 12 points, 10 rebounds. He's been pretty much a 9-9 guy his whole career. So he's serviceable. He's a homegrown guy. They drafted him and he wants to be back. They could probably sign him for much less than 18 million. I think they could probably sign him for like 8 million a year. Okay. So they would want to get rid of Andre Drummond. Okay. They want to get rid of that contract, that $28 million that's clogging up everything for them right now and could cost them luxury tax money. They're locked into Kevin Love for another 3 seasons. They can't get rid of Kevin Love for another 3 seasons unless somebody deals for Kevin Love. And from all indications, they have also said they want to keep Kevin Love. I don't understand why, but that's what they're saying. And Kevin Love has indicated he wants to stay there. Okay. So Kevin Love's off the table. So what we want in this scenario? Everybody's talking about a point guard, right? Now, I love Frank Ntilikina. Y'all know I'm a big Frank Ntilikina fan. I want Frank Ntilikina to have the keys. But daggone it, I also like Darius Garland. I ain't going front. I like Darius Garland. And what Cleveland has is they have two starting caliber point guards. They have Colin Sexton and Darius Garland. they drafted Kevin Porter Jr., who's a shooting guard, who's a wing player, and he's a starting caliber player, and he played very well for them last year. So if you watched Cleveland last year, you would know that you can't have both Colin Sexton and Darius Garland starting. They don't have enough defense between them. They're young, and one of them's going to start. Now, if you look at the stats, they have given Colin Sexton the majority of the minutes. He's playing over 30 minutes a game for his first 2 seasons, which means Darius Garland at best is a part-time point guard. I'm sure he's not happy with that, and I'm sure his agent is not happy with that. So here's my proposal. We trade Julius Randle, Dennis Smith Jr., and the number 8th pick. And we take back Andre Drummond, Darius Garland, and their number, what are they, 6th pick? I think they're the 6th pick. We take Darius Garland, Andre Drummond. What pick do they have? They got the 5th pick. So we take the 5th pick and Andre Drummond and Darius Garland, and we give them Julius Randle and Dennis Smith Jr. Now let's talk about why each team would do this. Let's talk about why each team would do this. And before you give me comments, please look at the whole video. Why would Cleveland do this? Well, in this trade, they're saving $11 million because they're sending out $35 million and they're taking back $24 million. So in this trade, they save $11 million. Okay. And that helps them. That reduces their tax burden for sure. That reduces their tax burden. It might even eliminate the luxury tax burden. They would still probably be over the cap, but they will not be over the luxury cap tax as they would in the present scenario. Okay. So they reduce their tax burden by $11 million. They can turn around and offer Tristan Thompson now $8 million. They still would have the 8th pick. So whatever they decide they want to do with that, whether they want a Vassell who might be available at 8 or Onyeka who might be available at 8, they could do that. Okay. And then they have established point guard with Colin Sexton and an established backup with Dennis Smith Jr. if they believe, I'm assuming that they believe they can develop him into an NBA level guard. Okay. And then they would have a backup to Kevin Love and Julius Randle. Okay. At the 4 spot. And he also can back up Tristan Thompson at the 5 spot. So you have a backup for the 4 and the 5, and you're only on the hook to Julius Randle for 1 year. So after this next season, they can decide not to exercise their team option and he would be off their books. So you give Colin Sexton the starting point guard job outright. He doesn't have to battle with Darius Garland. And you have a backup that's going to know he's a backup in Dennis Smith Jr. You have a backup to Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson, because we all know Kevin Love is going to get hurt. I mean, I don't know when he's ever played a full season. That cat gets hurt every year. Okay. So you're going to have a backup to him. Julius Randle's going to understand Colin Sexton and Kevin Porter Jr. are your primary scorers. So he's not going to be, and then he'll be backing up these 2 other guys. So that's a better position for him. And so it helps Cleveland in that regard. Well, how does it help the Knicks? So the Knicks have $50 million in cap space. Okay. We lose $11 million in cap space. Okay. That would leave us with $39 million still in cap space. We don't need to worry about LaMelo Ball. Darius Garland is a proven entity. He can play in the NBA. And so for that practical purposes, you can't say LaMelo Ball is better than Darius Garland. He's never played in the NBA. Darius Garland has. So now you got a starting point guard. Okay. And for the sake of argument, Frank is his backup. Now you don't even need to draft another point guard. You got Darius Garland as your starter. Frank as your backup. All right. Then you got Andre Drummond and Mitch. Okay. So, however you want to do it, Mitch starts, Andre backs him up. That's pretty good at the 5 spot, right? Then we still have the 5th pick in this year's draft. So now you take LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, and Wiseman off the board. Chicago has already made it known they want Denny. He's gone. But look what you got left. You got Okoro available. You still got a Vassell available. You have Onyeka available. You have some really good players available, to you. You could also trade that pick and get two. You got Obi Toppin available. You have some really good players available at 5. Okay. Then, so you got your starting point guard. Okay. You got your backup point guard. You got either a starting or backup center. Okay. Because obviously Andre Drummond could start at center or he could back up Mitch. Okay. And if one of them's in foul trouble, you got the other one, a good backup, a good center, right? Then you still have money to get shooters. You could get Davis Bertans and Mook. You can afford both of them because you'll have $39 million in cap space. You can get Davis Bertans and Mook. You could get Mook and Jeremy Grant. You can get Davis and Jeremy Grant. You can get Gallinari and Bertan. You could do a lot of things and have, you still have your money. You still can have Bullock coming off the bench. Now you lose Taj Gibson. You're going to sacrifice Taj Gibson, but now you got Andre Drummond as a backup at the 5. Okay. At the 4 spot, whichever two of these guys you choose, you still could get Harris. You still could get, Bogdanovich. You still could get Mook. You could get 2 guys and pay no more, I'm saying, than $36 million between the two of them. Okay. Cause that's what I would do. I'll make a budget. I offer Mook 2 years, 32 million, 30 million. I think he'll take 30. That's 15 million a year. You still got, money to go get another guy. So you can go get Harris for 18 million and still only have spent 33. All right. Then you could, you re-sign Bullock. So you got a shooter coming off the bench. You still got your 27th pick. You still got your 38th pick. You haven't given up any future firsts. Okay. So now you're starting 5, Darius Garland. Let's say RJ Barrett. I'm going to throw out 2 names. It could be, like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be any, because you got too many options. You got Jeremy Grant you could sign. You got Harris you could sign. You got Bertans you could sign. You got Mook you could sign. You got Gallinari you could sign. Somebody's going to take that money. And whoever of those guys, 2 guys take the money, you're going to have 2 shooters. All right. So let's throw out names. Let's say you get Bertans at the 3 because he plays 4 and 3, small ball, 4, stretch 4, and he plays the 3 also. And then you got Mook on the other side. We bring back Marcus Morris. Okay. You got those 2 guys at your 4 and your 3. You got Mitch at the 5. You got Darius Garland at the point guard, and you got RJ at your shooting guard. RJ could also play the 3. Could also do that. And you have all kind of combinations because you got Bullock coming off the bench. You got Dotson coming off the bench. You got Frank coming off the bench. You got Andre Drummond coming off the bench. You got all kinds of depth. And I think you give these guys to Tom Thibodeau, you could win 42 games. You could win 42 games with this. You could be in that 40 win, 500 scenario. You could be looking at an 8 spot. Okay. With that team. And you still, you haven't overspent for anybody. The guys you signed, you got the two forward spots. The longest term is 3 years. Okay. And then you still, to me, you got Kevin Knox coming off to back up Mook at the 4. You still got him backing up Mook at the 4. Okay. He may not get that many minutes because, you know how Thibodeau is. He's probably going to run Mook 35 minutes a game. But hey, that's on Kevin Knox. He's going to get some backup minutes. It's his chance to continue to develop. What do y'all think? Shalom.